What's up, guys? As promised, this is the discussion, the first in the video series of shit hit the fan type of situation.
The shit's gonna hit the fan.
Survival, being prepared, and all that fun stuff. So today is just going to be basically just real quick, I guess like a brief overview, my thoughts on the whole shit hit the fan situations and what that could potentially and more realistically be like. So everyone always thinks, like collapse of government and no rule of law and all that fancy horse shit, alien invasions, the zombie apocalypse.
Zombie snuffleupagus? I'm ready for that. Me and old Daisy here and my doomsday device gonna aim you right up your hiney hole.
And stupid scenarios like that. So they want to have like insane amounts of weapons and an insane amount of ammunition and an entire like underground bunker that you could like survive for like years and all that stuff. The harsh reality is when I think a lot of other people talk about shit hit the fan scenarios, they're more along the lines of talking about natural disasters, major emergencies that are just out of our control, that are just simply that, natural disasters, hurricanes and massive flooding, blizzards and stuff of that nature, tornadoes, that can knock power out for, days or weeks at a time, can shut down infrastructure and take away transportation and just all of that stuff. So it's important to prepare you and your family for situations like that. And there's very simple things. It's not that hard, and you don't have to have a ton of money to do it. You can do little things here and there. Every time you go grocery shopping, you can pick up a few extra canned goods, a few extra non-perishables, and like that's a huge part of it. Food and water. You need to have enough in your cabinets to last a few days. A week. I would say a week is probably a safe time frame. I generally keep about a week's worth of food at all times. I have both canned, dry, and freeze-dried meals, like camping meals and stuff like that. They're great options. Now, when it comes to like your typical off-the-shelf non-perishables, you want to rotate your stock. So your canned foods and your boxed goods, your dry goods, you want to rotate that through. So don't just like buy a whole ton of it thinking like, all right, this is my stockpile, and 10 years down the road, the shit's going to all be bad, or it may not be, but you don't want to take the chance, because if you have a natural disaster and ambulances can't get to you and you eat freaking a bad can of whatever and get sick and need to go to the hospital, well, you're kind of fucked. So you got to think about that shit. Water's a big thing. So have, most people use bottled water nowadays. Nobody really drinks from a faucet. I have water filtration system in my sink. And I always have, canteens and stuff like that kicking around. I have water filtration systems like the Sawyer. I like Sawyer. You can use whatever you want. Grail, things like that. Boil the water to make it safe to drink. You could pre-filter using a bandana, a Millbank bag. But it's important to have the ability to purify and sterilize your water. Boiling is the easiest. And then you would need some sort of a cooking stove or whatever if you are out of power for an extended period of time. So your basic type Coleman, camping stoves work great. Have a little bit of fuel on hand for that. Some lighting implements for loss of power, candles, flashlights, extra batteries for those things. You want to have, like, especially in winter situations, like I know some of us up north had a pretty harsh winter. So having, supplementary heat sources like a little buddy heater and a few propane tanks kicking around, a wood stove, stuff like that. I have a pellet stove, which doesn't take a lot of electricity, and I have a small generator, which will run some lights in my pellet stove, no problem. It'll even run my home furnace. And I keep that full, and I keep that, my small gas tank full of fuel and everything. But clothing and blankets, have extra blankets, not just the ones that you have on your bed and stuff, but have few extras kicking around. I always have a couple blankets on the couch, in the closet, for camping and whatnot. Wool is really good. It's really warm. So other points, and nobody really thinks about, is like your community and communications. A lot of people don't think about that kind of stuff. So when you lose like electricity and a grid goes down in a natural disaster, you lose cell service, you lose internet, you lose all that stuff. Anyone who's been through it, they know that. I am an amateur radio operator. I have been since 1997. It's very easy to get into. You can just do Google searches or whatnot. But at the very minimum, you can get these little radios called a Baofeng. They're only about yay big. The UV5 or whatever. They're like less than $20 on Amazon. And you can look up the FRS frequencies on the FCC website. And if you have a couple of those, then you got cheap walkie-talkies. You can program the FRS Family Radio Service frequencies in there, and you can utilize that for communications with your neighbors, with your family. You can get your GMRS license or your amateur radio license, and now you have access to a lot more communications via repeaters and longer distance, especially the ham radio side of things. I talk to people worldwide on tiny little radios that put out very low power with just a proper antenna setup. So protection is a topic that we will get into in another video, I think. But that is all up to personal preference. And so bugging in or bugging out in those situations, that's also personal preference and your current situation. I know there's been natural disasters where happen while you're somewhere else. Then you're going to have a strategy to be able to get home to your family. And those things you need to plan for and prepare yourself for. And we'll get into vehicle kits in future videos as well. I will show you what I generally keep in my truck. And also in my car. They're both pretty much the same type of kit. A little bit more in my truck because that's my outdoor rig. It's four-wheel drive and good tires, and that's what I take out in the forests and stuff. But I think that's about it for today. So we'll stay tuned for the future videos. So you want to make sure that you have a plan. So in case of any kind of an emergency, you want to make sure that you have enough water either stored or a filtration and purification options. I'd say for at least a week. Same with food. You want enough food, canned goods and dried goods. Rotate that stock out. The freeze-dried camping meals are great as well in a pinch. All you got to do is boil water. Flashlights, candles, lanterns, and extra batteries and fuel to run those. Heat if it's wintertime, and fuel for the heater. Clothing, extra blankets. A generator is always a plus, like I mentioned, and fuel for that. And, the communication, look into that if you so feel it. And, staying as a community, communicating with your community, your neighbors. So, your neighbors might not have any food. Well, and you have a month's worth. Well, you just going to let them starve? No, and vice versa. They'll probably invite you in their house if you have no food. But, that's about it. So it's not always, nuclear friggin' nuclear war and all of that fancy horse shit. You know, there's not going to be any zombies
Zombies? Somebody say zombies?
that are going to come and try and suck your fucking brains out and all this stuff. It's most likely just natural disasters that we are going to face, at least in our lifetime. Like let's be realistic. Take it or leave it. These are my thoughts. Feel free to comment your thoughts and everything else. Just don't be a douchebag. See you later. Like and subscribe. We'll catch you on the next one.